Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This is Paul, and today I've got a PSA for you. Yes, a public service announcement. It is the beginning of summer, at least here in Western New York it is, and officially it is. But anyhow, it's the beginning of summer, and it's what rehabilitators call orphan season. Yeah, orphan season. For those of you who don't know, I used to be a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. What that means is I used to take orphaned and injured wild animals, take care of them, and get them back in the wild where they belong. Now, this is the time of year when I was a wildlife rehabilitator, yes, I did give up my license a few years ago. I let it lapse on purpose. I just didn't have the time, and I felt I couldn't put the effort into it that wildlife rehabilitation really needs. So I gave up my license, and now I just refer people to other rehabilitators. But when I was a wildlife rehabilitator, I took care of all kinds of animals. I was both state and federally licensed, so I was able to take in both mammals and birds. You need a federal license to take in wild birds. And the other thing is, on the state level, I was a Class 2 wildlife rehabilitator, which meant I could also take on apprentices. I could take on help. I could train others to do wildlife rehabilitation. So it was more than just doing the rehab myself. I was basically getting other people to do it and training them so that they could get their licenses. So anyhow, this time of year, this is when all of us rehabilitators would start getting phone calls from the general public telling us, save this baby animal. Or sometimes, I saved a baby animal. Now what do I do? Yeah, we would get those crazy calls too. Now, I shouldn't call them crazy calls because it's concerned people. We have that maternal instinct built in where we see something that looks like it's all alone. We have to take care of it. We need to nurture it. We need to make sure it's okay. So when we see a little baby bird hopping around on the ground, what do? We pick it up and try to take care of it. We nurture it. Well, sometimes we're actually hurting it more than we're helping it. So the best thing to do when you find what you think is orphaned wildlife, the best thing to do is leave it alone. Here in New York State, our DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, they're the guys who kind of take care of the wildlife, the nature, the environment in New York State. And that's who gave me my initial wildlife rehabilitation license. So those are the guys who, they had a campaign a few years back. Actually, it was quite a few years back, but they keep it going. In the springtime, I start seeing their ads out, their posters. If you care, leave them there. And it makes sense. I mean, like I said, maternal instincts. We want to take care of these injured or orphaned wild animals. But if you really care that much about them, leave them alone. Yeah, let them be. If you care, leave them there. Because sometimes when you try to take care of them, you're actually doing more harm than good. Imagine if you are all alone, you're injured or helpless in some way, or just all alone, and all of a sudden this huge giant of another species comes up, reaches down, grabs you. I'd be scared, wouldn't you? Well, that's what we're putting this wildlife through. We're not their parents. We're not even their species. So they are afraid, even the babies. So we are actually interfering with nature. Now, I've had many people give me a call, and they'll call me. This was back when I was a rehabilitator. They would call me and say, "Oh, I found this baby animal, maybe a baby squirrel." Oh, that was a big one. "I found a baby squirrel. It was all alone. It was orphaned. And so I've been taking care of it for the past week, and now it doesn't seem to be doing so well. It seems real listless. What can I do about this poor animal? What can I do for it?" And I just want to yell at them at that point. But then I remember they were trying to help. They were concerned. They wanted to help. They didn't know any better. What they should have done on day one is contacted a wildlife rehabilitator immediately, not try to take care of it themselves. So by that point, I just let them know, "Well, why don't you get it over to me? I'll try to get it so that it's doing better." And half the time, they will do that. The other half, they're like, "Oh no, I've already done a week of, I want to take care of it." And I say, "Well, legally, I can't give you advice on how to take care of it. So here's your choice. You either bring it to me or you take care of it and let it die." That usually convinces them to bring it to me, but not always. And I guarantee the ones who just hung up on me, the click of the phone, those are the animals that did not make it. No, they can't make it because they're usually giving them the wrong food, taking care of it wrong, putting it in stressful conditions. I've had people call me and say, "Oh, I've got this baby bird and it's not doing real well. I don't know what to do." And all I hear in the background are little kids playing. And I'm like, "Well, what have you been doing? Have the kids been around it? What have you been feeding?" And it's all wrong what they're doing, but they don't know any better. I've been trained. Wildlife rehabilitators have been trained to know how to deal with these wild animals, how to take care of them. The general public has not. Yeah, you can go online now, which I wish these sites would disappear, but they're out there. How to take care of a wild animal. It's like, no, don't. Don't take care of it. Take it to a licensed, knowledgeable wildlife rehabilitator. Yeah, so this is what rehabilitators are dealing with, especially this time of year. We find that people, out of the caring hearts that they have, are trying their best, but doing a bad job. And like I said, I don't blame them, not their fault. They just should have called somebody. So what do you do? How do you know if this animal needs help? How do you know it truly does need a wildlife rehabilitator? Well, first of all, let's talk about birds. Okay, birds, if you see them on the ground, hopping around, fully feathered, it's probably what we call a fledgling. So a fledgling is a baby bird that is old enough to take care of itself, old enough to fly, but it's getting free food, free care, so why should it? Yeah, it's like a teenager. Why should I leave home? I'm getting all the food. I'm getting the free care. Well, these guys are ready to be on their own. Mom and dad are like, "Okay, I've had enough. I've been taking care of you all this time. You're self-sufficient. Time to leave the nest." And they kick them out. Yeah, that's when the parents are kind of nudging them out of the nest and saying, "Okay, fly." And the babies, usually within a day or two, will start flying. But sometimes it takes that day or two. So if you see them hopping around on the ground, they're probably not orphaned. You may say, and I get these phone calls all the time too, but the parents aren't around. It's like, yes, they are. You just don't see them. So the parents are around. It's just we don't see them because they are trying to protect themselves. It's not like humans. I mean, I would give my life for my children. I would give my life for my grandchildren. We have that maternal, paternal instinct. We take care of our young. Well, birds, wildlife, they take care of their young too, unless their lives are at risk. If their lives are at risk, they keep their distance. They can have babies again later in the year or the next year. So they take care of themselves. So when they see these big monsters coming around, looking around at their babies, they're not going to be around. They're going to hide in the woods, protecting themselves. Now, sometimes you do get, like I get the tree swallows when I'm checking my nest for Nest Watch. I get the tree swallow parents dive bombing me. Sometimes they actually hit me in the head, but they're dive bombing me, trying to chase me away. But they're not going to sit there landing on my head and pecking at me to get me to go away. They're going to just try to chase me away. And if that doesn't work, which it doesn't, then they just leave me alone. They figure, well, there's nothing I can do. So usually the parents are around. Best thing to do is just let the baby go. Now, if you're unsure and you still don't believe me that the parents are around, what you can do is pick up that baby and put it back in the nest, if you know where the nest is. If you don't know where the nest is, you can make a makeshift nest, put it up in a tree out of reach of animals, predators, and put the baby in there. If it's down on the ground again, maybe in an hour or so, hopping around on the ground, well, put it back in the nest again. If it's down on the ground again, 3 strikes. That baby was on the ground 3 times. It's supposed to be out of the nest. So leave it alone, keep a distance. If you watch from a distance, you'll probably see mom and or dad coming down, taking care of that baby. So just leave it alone. Now, if there are no feathers on the bird, if it's naked, if it looks real weak, if it doesn't look like it's ready to fly, then you should try to find that nest and put it in the nest. It's probably a nestling. It's not a fledgling. So it belongs in the nest. Maybe it got blown out by the wind. Maybe it fell out accidentally. We don't know. But try to get it back in the nest. If you can't find the nest, you can either get a makeshift nest, put it up in the tree. Mom and dad will probably take care of it, even in that nest. Or call a wildlife rehabilitator and get it to them. So those are your options with baby birds. Now, if you find a baby mammal, maybe it's a squirrel running around all by itself and it looks too young to take care of itself, then you just leave it alone also. Yeah, same thing. It's fine if it's not hobbling around, if it's not just laying there weak on the ground, it's fine. It's doing okay. Mom and dad are probably around somewhere, watching from a distance again, waiting for you, the big predator, to go away, and then it will come and take care of its young. Now, if you find baby rabbits are difficult. You see, baby rabbits are usually hidden in the grass. I get so many calls in the spring, or I should say I used to. I used to get so many calls in the spring about baby rabbits who basically got injured from a lawnmower. Yeah, mom and dad, they dig this hole in your lawn and they line it with their own fur and then they cover it up with grasses. They leave the babies alone most of the day, and then they come back in the evening to take care of them when you and I aren't around. Now, before you mow your lawn in the spring, walk your lawn. Check it for these holes, these divots. Check it for the rabbit nests. They're not easy to spot, so look closely. And as you're walking around, if you find one, mark it. You can drive around it with your lawnmower, but don't mow over that spot. Leave it alone. Now, if you're unsure if that baby is truly gone, or maybe you find a nest of baby rabbits and you think, I haven't seen a parent in a long time. If you're unsure, a way you can test it is to put some sticks over it. Just small sticks, not big, huge logs or nothing, but put sticks over that hole. Close enough so that they would have to be pushed aside by mom when she comes back. Check them later in the evening, just before the sun goes down. Check them and see if they were moved. If they were moved, you know the parents are around, they're taking care of the babies. If they haven't been moved, wait a little while longer, check again. If they still haven't been removed, then you can call a wildlife rehabilitator. Now, with rabbits, you really need to get them to a wildlife rehabilitator. They are very high-strung animals, very high intensity, and it's tough to rehabilitate them. A lot of them die just from stress. I know I gave up rehabilitating rabbits. I stopped doing them after a couple of years because I had like 0 success rate with them. I went to a conference once for rehabilitation, and there was a married couple there who specialized in baby rabbits. And so I went to their class. I listened to everything they had to say, and then they opened it up to questions at the end. And everyone had the same question. What's your release rate? That's big amongst rehabilitators. We want to know, what's the success rate for what you're doing? And their answer, 40%. Now, on average, with most wildlife, you've got about a 60% average release rate, and that varies from year to year. I had years where everything I touched would die. Other years, I couldn't kill something if I tried. Yeah, I had like a 90% release rate one year. I had about a 30% the next year. So it all depends on what animals you're getting in, how tough the cases are, but it's kind of nice to hear an average. Average is about 60% of animals are released back to the wild. And these are with professional rehabilitators. Can you imagine just a person who's never had any training? Yeah, we're talking maybe 10% at the most. But anyhow, with rabbits, these are people who do it all the time, just rabbits. And theirs was only 40%. That's how high-strung rabbits are. So just leave them alone, call a rehabilitator. Now, another rule of thumb with bunny rabbits, little baby rabbits, if you aren't sure if they can be on their own, look at their head. If you see a little white dot on their head, they're not self-sufficient. They need mom and dad. If that little white dot is missing, they're old enough to be on their own. Believe it or not, they look tiny, very tiny. But they are able to take care of themselves. They can be out on their own. So no dot on the head, no white dot, leave them alone. They're fine. You don't need to even look for mom and dad. Now, the last species I want to talk about are deer. White-tailed deer are another very specialized species for wildlife rehabilitators. I don't deal with them. I never did. But I did have friends who did. And they would tell me, yeah, they become habituated very easily. It takes very specialized care for them. And every spring, usually around Memorial Day weekend, a friend of mine who used to rehabilitate deer, she would call it not Memorial Day weekend, she would call it Fawn Weekend. She would get dozens of calls about orphaned deer who weren't really orphaned. No, they weren't. But deer have something that's a little bit different than what we're used to, because once again, we have that human mentality, take care of your young. With deer, mom will leave them. She'll leave the babies all day long, go off and feed on her own, and then she'll come back in the evening and nurse the babies. Why does she do this? Well, it's protection for the babies. You see, the fawn is born without a scent. Mom has a scent, so the coyotes can smell her. The fox can smell her, but they can't smell that baby. So the baby, who has these little spots all over it to help it blend in with the grasses, looks like the grass and is taught to stay very still. The animals can't smell it, so they don't know that fawn is there. I don't know how many times I've been walking along through my yard and the tall grass, and all of a sudden I get spooked up because like 2 feet away from me, a fawn jumps up and runs away. I never knew it was there. I never saw it. So these other animals are not seeing it either. So it's part of their protection. But people don't know that. So they see this baby deer, this fawn, just laying alone in the field, no parent around, and they call the rehabilitator. This baby needs to be rescued. Wrong. I've had people bring me fawns, and I tell them right away, take it back where you found it. Most of the time, I think they do. I hope they do. Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if the baby is actually doing what we call bleeding, not B-L-E-E-D. No, they're not bleeding. No blood involved. They're bleating. If you hear them calling, these loud, like baby calls, that's what we call bleating. And that bleating is basically the baby calling for food. They're hungry and they want food. They need food. That usually indicates mom and dad are not around. Time to call, you got it, the wildlife rehabilitator. Okay, so that's basically covers everybody. Oh, there is something I want to backtrack on. I did talk about putting a baby bird back in the nest. Always leave the baby birds in the nest alone. But like I said, if you do find a baby bird on the ground that you think is too young to be out of the nest, go ahead, pick it up, put it in the nest. And yes, I know, I was told when I was a youngster, don't touch baby birds. The parents can smell your scent on them and they're going to reject them. Not true. No, the baby birds, if you touch them, they're going to be cared for by their parents. Number one, most birds have a very poor sense of smell. They can't smell you on them, but they probably did see you pick up that bird and put it in the nest. They don't care. As long as you're not near them, once you leave, they're going to come back and they're going to take care of that baby. So don't worry about it. Pick it up. Okay, now for your safety, I recommend wearing gloves. You know, there are zoonotic diseases out there, which is another reason why you should not try to take care of wildlife. Zoonotic diseases, basically it's a disease that can be transferred from a wild animal to a human. And there's a lot of them out there, so don't handle wildlife. So hopefully you understand, if you find what you think is an orphaned wild animal out there, number one, leave it alone. Don't touch it. Let it be. Call a wildlife rehabilitator if you're unsure. They can talk you through it. Now, what about injured wildlife? Well, this time of year, people are out more. They're finding wildlife more because it's summer, it's warm, and often we run into an animal that was maybe hit by a car. Maybe it was injured in some way or another. What do you do then? Once again, call a wildlife rehabilitator. They're trained for this. You're not. Number one, it's healthier for the animal. Number two, it's healthier for you. Once again, zoonotic diseases. You also don't want to get bitten by a coyote. You don't want rabies. It'll kill you. And number three, I forgot what number I was on there. I almost said 4. Number 3, it's illegal for you to take care of that wild animal. Yes, most states have laws stating that only a licensed wildlife rehabilitator can take care of wild animals. And if it's a bird, you have to be federally licensed. So you're breaking the law if you're not licensed and you're trying to take care of these wild animals. So please, if you care, leave them there. Okay, I'm done with the public service announcement. The PSA is over, so I hope you understand how to deal with wildlife this time of year. We're starting to get out more. We're starting to see them more. Best thing to do, just let them be. Watch them from a distance. Don't try to get close. And above all, keep getting outside and exploring the nature and seeing more of these wild animals. I hope you enjoyed learning about how to deal with injured and orphaned wildlife. Once again, it is orphan season according to, wildlife rehabilitators. So please, if you care, leave them there. Don't forget to invite friends to the podcast, rate and review. And above all, get out and explore the nature around you. Have a great day. Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.